So, welcome once again to Championship Rugby League with myself and Craig. How are you, mate? You well?
I'm very well, yes. After watching New South Wales just retain or win Origin, it's always nice to see the Blues beat the Maroons.
It most certainly is, and of course to all those wonderful Queenslanders that a couple of you met at the weekend, our sincerest condolences. Not it's what I would say. What I would say to those. But no, great win for. I mean, look. Let's just start there. We both watched it, and as this goes out, most people will have seen it. As a spectacle of rugby league, the production, everything that goes with it. Obviously, they've got the massive deal now, the NRL, and we wait to see what happens in terms of their English, European investment. We should say that as a spectacle, rugby league doesn't get any better than that, does it? That is incredible.
Yeah, it is. I think the old production of how they do it, the legends of the game that they've got, the commentators that they've got, now they produce everything. There's very, very few mistakes. Just the TV camera angles, they've got the quality of the footage as well. I think that's second to none as well. We talk over here, don't we, about Captain's Challenge and try no try over here, and you're trying to dissect a decision based on a video clip, but frame by frame, that you can't see anything. It's like you're watching it on a potato over here sometimes with the quality of cameras, but over there you can see everything frame by frame, and it just makes the whole occasion, the whole atmosphere of watching the game just so much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Great series, great advertisement for the game, brilliant stuff, and of course we had a massive spectacle at the weekend as well, which was magic. A couple of blowouts in that, a couple of good games in there. You missed the best of the lot. You had to get off on Sunday to beat the traffic home. But as a venue, I think it was the first time that you've been to Hill Dickinson, of course. For once, you can go to Magic because your team had a week off. And, of course, you spent the day with myself and the Super League Raw community. Your assessment of Magic, did you enjoy your time with us, and what did you think of it?
I absolutely loved it. First time of any Magic as a fan. I've been a couple of times in a coaching capacity, but absolutely love the occasion. I thought, anybody who's watching and listening to this who maybe thought about coming on the trip or is considering going to a grand final trip with Rod, I'd just wholeheartedly recommend that you do it. I thought the whole day, the whole weekend were absolutely brilliant. With the community that you've developed on this, it's just fantastic. Supporters from a variety of different clubs across the north of England, and how everybody got on, the atmosphere that we had, the day that we had on the Saturday, obviously a couple of beverages on the evening as well, and listening to the band back in Wallington. I thought the whole weekend were absolutely brilliant. So anybody who's thinking or debating should I, shouldn't I, definitely do it. Recommend it 100%.
Yeah, it's a great community, and what I loved about it, of course, was, I mean, not that they wouldn't, of course, but just the fact that you were just treated as one of the community, mate, and you were embraced by them all. Obviously, you had the joy of meeting little Sammy, who's a proper anorak of rugby league, and it's fair to say that it was like Uncle Buck, wasn't it? It was like the young lad at Uncle Buck when he asked John Candy 100 questions in rapid succession. Once he got his teeth into, he didn't let go, did he?
No, I felt like I was a mastermind at one point. I know I couldn't pass on a question either.
Happy days. But no, mate, you're welcome to the grand final and any other thing that we're doing. Of course, Craig was rocking the sandals. You won't be surprised there. He looked the part. Albeit the bucket hat didn't go on because it was a little bit too hot. And before we get into what we're here to discuss, which of course is Championship Rugby League, it'd be amiss of us not to talk about Craig's Pandas. Great panda shirt there going on, Craig. People will be wondering what all that's about. So crack on. What's going on with the Pandas, mate? Because you're rocking those.
Yeah, Panda, youngest kid he's been obsessed with pandas since he was born, since he knew what a panda was. He's got about 1 million panda teddies in his bedroom, different t-shirts and jumpers and hoodies and pajamas with pandas on. And we went to Edinburgh Zoo a couple of years back now to see the pandas up there. Took him for his birthday before they went back to Japan, and he got a t-shirt, so obviously I had to get a t-shirt as well. And I'm not the most fashionable bloke in the world. I don't really bother what people think about my clothes, as you can probably tell. And that's the story, mate.
As long as you're comfortable in your own skin, mate, who cares? Right, let's get to the action on the field. Of course, when we recorded the show last week, there was a game on Wednesday night, and we give it a plug. Windley's taking on Doncaster, and you've got to give Donny a lot of credit for this. We felt home advantage. We felt, Windley's run a really good run of form. Yeah, they had a blip, but we felt they'd get back on the horse pretty quickly. Not a bit of it. Richard Horne's Doncaster on fire, 26 points to 6 win. They were 16-0 up at half time. I mean, that first half, did they catch Windley's cold? I don't know, but this is a real blow for Windley on home soil, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And 2 games lost on the bounce against two teams that are very close to them in the league. And we've had that ourselves at Sheffield this year, where we've lost games against teams that are in the top 6. The only team that would beat us in the top 6 this year is Barrow, and I guess from a Widnes point of view, is that a worrying aspect of the season that they strung that really good run together, and they come up against 2 teams in the top 6, which are going to be coming up against in the playoffs at the end of the season, and didn't quite manage to do it on that occasion. It's got to be a learning curve for them. What were the short on, what they're deficient on, where do they need to improve? But as you said, for Doncaster, what a victory that is. They're not played for a while, so for them to come out and get that victory against a Widnes team on home soil, and they've been playing very, very well at home of Widnes prior to the Oldham game, so a massive result for Doncaster.
Yeah, I mean, Alan Coleman will be hoping that it's not, deja vu. Last year, of course, they faded at the back end of the season because they had a lot of injuries last year. He'll be hoping that this is a temporary setback, and they can, because let's be fair, up until the last few weeks, Windley's form has been really good, high standard playoff form. But like I say, it's just a bit. It's got to be a concern for the Windley's faithful, this one.
Yeah, just a little bit, but it's, again, like I say, it's they're pretty much cemented in that top 6 now. So I think they'll struggle to drop out of the 6, which is the place where you want to be at the end of the season. So the hard work that they've done so far, with the results that they've got so far in the season, they've got that reward. And you can't, as a team, you can't go all the way through the season. I don't care who you are, can't go all the way through the season reaching the highs that you need to reach. And if it is a little bit of a blip, which every team has the troughs as well as the peaks, then it's probably a good time to do it now before the running towards the end of the season. So if you lose your last 2 or 3 games of the season going into the playoffs, that's more of a concern. You've got an opportunity now between now and the end of the season to start hitting a little bit of form again and peak towards the end of the season for the playoffs. Yeah,
absolutely. And then, of course, we moved to Friday, a game that, again, we felt could be a good game. And it turned out to be a good game, actually. Batley Bulldogs 14, Oldham 20 in this one. Half-time, it was 8-12 to Oldham. Batley started really well. They had Oldham right on the back foot. A lovely, some nice tries as well. The Butterworth one, I thought, was taken really, really well. Reese had a good game, in fairness to him, because I think he also got an assist, if memory serves me right. He had a fine game. And at no point in this was Oldham, well, either side, comfortable. It was a proper quality game in terms of how close it was. And some nice tries as well along the way. Just going back to Origin, before we came on air, we said that, in my opinion, I thought Hudson Young, over the course of the 3 games at Origin, second row, didn't get the flowers he deserved. He played every minute. And we said, second rowers, they just don't get the love and respect that they deserve. Matty Ashurst in this game for Oldham got himself a try, but not just that, he was all over it. He ran some lovely lines throughout the game, really strong defence. I thought Ashurst for Oldham superb.
Yeah, as you said, I think there's certain positions within rugby league that may be ignored a little bit or just taken for granted. When they're giving man of matches out, it's easy to give it to an halfback who's kicked or has got his ball in his hands on the back, his hands quite a bit, or a fullback, or even a winger who scores 2 or 3 tries. It's easy to give them the man of the match. You don't really notice sometimes the back rower who's made 14, 15 carries in the game and made 35, 40 tackles in the game, because that's just them doing their job and doing it to the height of their ability. But players like Matt, he's been around for a number of years doing what he does, scoring a lot of tries as well, so he's been a great player throughout the years, and obviously on Friday night as well against Batley.
Yeah, really, really good. And also Ben Artill got a lot of praise after this game. He called to Warrington, of course, this week with the Sam Powell suspension. And I think his performance against Batley on Friday would have probably gone a long way for that recall. He had a really strong game. And of course, that's Oldham's 13th consecutive win, which again, you talk about form. They are in the box seat at the moment. I would suggest outside of London, they are probably the form side in the Championship at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, how long can they keep it going now? As I said, you have peaks and troughs throughout the year. I would imagine there'll be a couple of bad performances coming from Oldham between now and the end of the season, but they've got that period now where they're winning games consecutively and continuously. And sometimes when you're in that mode as well, it's difficult for you to get out of some games like the one on Friday. If you're winning games, you find a way how to win them close games more often than not. If you're in a little bit of a downturn of form, or you're lacking some confidence in them close games, you'll find a way to lose it rather than win them. Oldham, with the form that they're on, the confidence that they've got, they're finding ways to win these close games.
Yeah, absolutely. One to keep an eye on, that winning streak for Oldham. A great win for them. They keep marching forward. Right. I mean, of course, we expected some big scores when we saw the fixture list for the weekend, and they did materialise. London 78, Hunslet 16, a record-breaking 7 tries in this game for Roro. It's just, at the moment, it's almost, you call it Harlem Globetrotters Championship, wouldn't you? Because they're that far ahead. When they come to town, it's all about the attacking plays. It's all about the attacking shape, and it's all about the tries that London are scoring, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. The by far and away too good for this division at the minute. As I've mentioned, you have peaks and troughs throughout the year. A trough for London will probably win the game by 30 points instead of 50 or 60 points. So that's where they are at the minute. And I guess with the news that's come out recently the last couple of days about it's going to be a 14 team, it sounds like it's going to be a 14 team Super League next year. And are London going to be, now they're not depending on the ING score, with the signings that they've made already for next year. They've made a couple of significant signings already for next year, that if they are still in Championship, then it could look even worse. I think there's been some great teams in the Championship over the years. Obviously, Lee, when they went full time and they flew through the division, and then Wakefield as well when they dropped down and went straight back up. London this year, are they as good as the 2 teams that have been down previously? I don't think the division's as strong as it was when Lee and Wakefield were in the divisions because of the combination of Championship and League One. But the performances and the score lines that they're putting on week after week after week, you can't argue with that.
No, you can't. And you talk about a couple from Warrington, Joe Philbin and Toby King have gone over there, and I'd be interested to, everybody's expecting that London are going to be one of those teams. I mean, there's big questions over the IMG piece. How is that going to work going forward? There's a lot of questions still, and we're in July, and talk is that the TV deal is due to be announced very, very shortly. But they need to bottom this out as quickly as possible, because these sides that are remaining in Super League or coming up to Super League need that opportunity to get the roster together. Because again, going back to Magic weekend, I mean, phenomenal performance from York, a great win for them against Huddersfield without doubt. But you look at the Bradford performance against Leeds, and you're going, they need a winter. They need another transfer window. They didn't have one last year. They need another winter to hopefully make that particular contest next year at Magic, providing it's derbies again, to be more competitive. And it's the same for all of these sides at the bottom. They need time, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And I know we're talking a little bit about London and drifting into Super League there, but it has a massive effect on Championship as well, because where we are currently, because of the indecisions within the game and people not knowing what's going on. I'm talking to players at the minute who are out of contracts at Sheffield, and even players who are out of contracts at other clubs trying to sort themselves out for next year. We're not doing any business at the minute because we don't know at the minute what's happening with the structure of the game, with the finances of the game. There's players that are in limbo at the minute, and the likelihood is that finances are going to come down in Championship. It's one of them things that we think is going to happen. So players now want to get themselves sorted out, and normally you've done this by now. As a coach, by the time you get to the halfway point of the season, you're well on the way of getting your squad nailed down for the following year. And you might leave maybe 2 or 3 places open towards the end of the season to see if anybody changes your mind about retaining them, anybody else who comes up that you maybe not expected had come up previously. But I think we've got 13 or 14 players contracted for next year, and at the minute, that's what we've got. We're waiting for answers now about the structure of the game, the finances of the game, the future of the game to a certain degree. I know there's a hell of a lot of other clubs in the Championship doing the same. I'm speaking to agents of players at the minute, and they're a little bit worried as well, because there's not a great deal of business going on at the minute for agents and for players, because there's that much uncertainty around the game, not just in Super League, but that filters down to Championship as well, that there's not a great deal of business being done, and there's a massive amount of uncertainty.
And that's what makes certainly the Philbin and King signing at London really interesting, because, if London aren't in Super, the impression I got was that London are coming up, and that was a big and that was why the likes of Toby and Joe have gone over there. If that doesn't materialise, I'd be very interested to see what their thoughts are, and if there's any caveats in that. Probably there won't be. And for me, and I'm sure you'd agree with this, Toby King and Joe Philbin should not be playing Championship Rugby League in 2027.
No, absolutely not. Not an open house chance, no. And then again, you go back to, if you look at the squad that they've got this year, it looks like it's only going to get stronger next year.
Yeah.
Now, they've blitzed the Championship this year, and it's made it look a little bit of a mockery at times with the scores that they're putting on the board. Yeah. I know there's other clubs that have been in certain situations, tricky situations themselves, that's contributed to the look of the Championship this year. But if you improve on London's team this year, and then next year, because the finance of every other club looks like it's coming down, or the majority of other clubs look like it's going down, I mentioned this previously, you'll probably see a lot of people leaving the game because the financial reward to play part-time rugby then has gone, and more people will be able to earn more money working overtime at work or spending time with the family to make it worthwhile. So the quality of the Championship might drop as well with the number of players that potentially could leave the sport. So if you're improving a London team and lowering the quality and lowering the depth within the Championship, it's going to make the competition look really, really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, then it's about how many fans remain loyal to the badge, how many just suddenly turn off, and it's a big problem, because like this year, I would say fair play to every fan of every team that has gone through those turnstiles, because let's be fair, this year has been, we've said it every week, it's been all over the place, but credit to those fans who, through rain or shine, I'm supporting my team no matter what, and they deserve a lot of credit this year. We talked about Widnes, of course, bad result for them on the Wednesday. Got right back on the horse, though, on Saturday at the Battle of the Vikings against Gould, 52 points nil. It's only 10-0 at half-time, but they ran riot in the second half with 42 unanswered points. Gould will be disappointed. They'd have wanted, I'm sure, to have put in a better effort against Widnes and 52 points to nil. But like I say, from a Widnes perspective, vitally important off the back of those losses to get back in the winning circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they probably breathed a massive sigh of relief at the end of the game. And as you said, 10-0 at half-time on the back of 2 defeats. Even though there were 10 points up, I'm sure there'll have been a little bit of nervousness and trepidation in the Widnes dressing room at half-time, thinking, well, if we concede a try fairly early on here, then his backside against the wall a little bit. So for them to go out in the second half and score 42 unanswered points, it gets them back on the winning ladder, points on the board as well. A little bit of a sigh of relief, as I say, and, confidence builder for moving forward for this week as well.
Yeah, no, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. A proper game, and we had a feeling it was going to be a proper game. Halifax Panthers against Swinton Lions. Such has been the way in which Swinton have been going about the business of late. Halifax also, we know, have got it in them to be a strong team at the Shea. I think we went Halifax home advantage, I think, if memory serves me right, in this one. I think we did.
I'm not sure if I called it or not. I thought it was too close.
It might be one of those where we went either way. I can't, as I say now, remember which way we went, but we thought it was going to be a close game, and it was. Albeit, Halifax, to their credit, they got off to a really good start. They went in at 16-6, but in the second half, it was all tied up at 22 apiece. Up until late on, and it was the Crooks try came in on 75 minutes, so that tells you that this was right in the balance, right again into those dilemmas. We've had a few of these this year. This was again a proper game of rugby league played by two sides with very little between them.
Yeah, look, we've just been talking about London and the look of the Championship and said it's not been a great look this year, but as you mentioned there's been some games that have been, a number of games this season that have been very, very close, and obviously this is one of them. And we've seen the development of Swinton from the start of the season, where I'm not sure how many defeats it was on the bounce, were it 10, 12, whatever it might have been. And obviously the change in coaching staff and changing personnel with some players coming in, they've shown a different side of themselves with the been winning games, and the performances have been getting better. But likewise, Halifax, with the trials and tribulations they went through, pretty much starting again with a squad of probably 17, 18 players and bringing some loan players in and whatnot. So they've been struggling through the season as well. So two teams that have had a tricky year, transitional year to a certain degree. And we said it was going to be a close game, and it turned out to be that.
A player that you know well, I think you know him well anyway, Jenson Windley, who of course was at Casford Tigers, and he played for the Panthers at the weekend. And with all of the recruitment that the Tigers are doing for 2027, I've got grave concerns for Jenson in terms of Castleford. There comes a point, dare I say it, Jack Sinfield, where you need to move away. You need to go and find your feet somewhere, and or else before you know it, your career's passed you by a little bit. Jenson needs to be playing. Do you think he's an opportunity for a championship club next year in terms of as a halfback to build a side around to get in rugby league week in, week out? Do you think that Castleford might be open to it?
Yeah, I think so, because I think what we're seeing with Jenson as an example, but there's a lot of other players within Super League as well that, there might be 18, 19, they get to 22 or 23, and they might have only played 10, 15 first team games.
Yeah. And
they're playing reserve team games, and they're in the 21-man squad but not playing, and sometimes the teams can't allow them to go out on loan because they're in and around that first team. But they're basically a full-time trainer. And there's got to come a point when these individuals have got to play. And I think this might be where we've talked about parent club, feeder club within Super League and Championship. This would be an ideal situation for somebody to get Jenson on loan at a cheaper value, so you're not paying as much money for him, because it'd be Castleford's player, a full-time player at Castleford. He'd be with you during the week on the evenings, but obviously training with Castleford during the day. But going out and having a full season on loan where there's no recall option. Because, again, there's no point sending somebody out on a season-long loan and then 3-4 weeks into the season, the parent club gets a few injuries. What we'll do now, we'll call Jenson back. I will call that individual back, because then if you've been told as the feeder club to the parent club that you've got this individual for the season, then you don't go out and recruit anybody else in that position. No. And then if the situation and circumstances change 5-6 weeks into the season and take that player back, then that massively impacts on what you can do in that season as well. So I certainly think somebody like Jenson and a lot of other younger players as well that are on the cusp, you'll know probably 1, 2 or 3 at Warrington that might be in a certain similar situation. They need to go out and play 20, 25 games at Championship against fully grown blokes in a competitive environment to test the skills, test the water, test the resilience, test the toughness, or whatever else it might be. They need to go out and play a full season within Championship. And as a coach as well, if I'm in Super League and I'm looking at this individual, if I know that he's had 20, 25 games in a Championship and he's stood out, then I'm more likely to chuck him into a first-team opportunity the following season within Super League, because there's a little bit of experience there. There's a little bit of something that you can fall back on and think, well, I've seen him play 20-odd games in Championship. I know he's got it about him, rather than that potential that might or might not be there, or might not be met by playing 3-4 games a season over the course of 4 or 5 seasons in Super League.
Absolutely. And I think my concern for Jenson is that, when you look at Castleford this year, I mean, there's a lot of rumour on the wind that Weaver and Assey are going to be offloaded. They haven't been covering themselves in glory. We saw that firsthand at Magic Weekend. Yeah. If Jenson's not getting a shot now, I mean, we've seen Jack Farriman at Wigan, we've seen Leon Hayes, Ewan Irwin at Warrington. You see that George Flanagan as an example, who's broke through at Huddersfield, and the list goes on. George Brown at Leeds, George Brown got his opportunity early in the season when there was injuries, and they're making noises that George is going to get his opportunity in 2027. Yet Jenson has not had a sniff, and that suggests to me that would Castleford be against him moving on? I don't know, but what I do know is the bits that I've seen of him. There's a rugby league player there, and I think that if, like you say, he was to get a steady amount of appearances at a Championship team, he could be very, very special. And I think it's the type of experience and just to be playing consistently to make sure that the talent that we see in Jenson is realised. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with Jenson Windley in that respect.
I think with Jenson as an example, because obviously I know Jenson from his time at Castleford.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether Castleford know or whether he knows what his position is. He's sort of flipping in between a halfback and a fullback. Yeah. I think there needs to be a decision on that. Yeah, it's great that you can play a couple of different positions, but I think there needs to be a decision on that. Is he an halfback? Is he a fullback? He's played both within the first team. He's played both away from the club as well. I actually think he'd be a really good fullback. I think not comparing him to Sam Tompkins, but I think he's a similar sort of style to Sam Tompkins. He's got a low centre of gravity. He can play at halfback. He can play at fullback. He's got a running game. He's got a passing game. I think it gives him that freedom to float around as a running threat. And he's got, as I said, the low centre of gravity, got a lot of pace, a lot of agility and evasion skills about him as well. So I think as a fullback, it'd be a decent option. But I think there needs to be a decision made about Jenson about, are you a full back here and half back? We're going to stick you in that position. But again, to caveat that with some of these younger players is that we've also got to make sure that we don't overwork these young players. There's been so many examples of players across the years that have come into first team rugby at 17, 18, 19-year-old and are playing 25 games a year. And then by the time they get to 27, 28, 29, they're absolutely broken. So I know we're talking about going out and getting a run of games consistently and making sure that they've got that experience, but we need to make sure that we're not overloading these young players. And these, clubs like Leeds have done that really well over recent years by introducing players into the first team and giving them that opportunity, that sort of sniff of what it's like to be a first team player, and then dragging them back and sticking them back in reserves or back in the academy and playing a few more games and then giving them that taster again and putting them in and bringing them back out. So I think we need to make sure that we're giving these players the opportunity, but we also need to make sure that we're protecting them so that by the time they get to the mid to late 20s, they're not absolutely exhausted and broken.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where it's important from a player's perspective that you select the right coach to play for, that they've got your best interest. I'm not saying that coaches don't, but I'm sure there's coaches who have different philosophies out there, and I think you've got to make sure that whoever you play for, you're aligned to in that way. I mean, you mentioned there again. I just want to finish off on Jenson just by saying you mentioned him as a fullback. Well, again, the noise is that they brought in PLT there, haven't they? So they brought PLT in. They've just signed Sloan. I mean, I'm sorry, but with the greatest respect, Jenson's he's already behind PLT. He's not going to get ahead of Sloan, so that would put him third in line.
Probably fourth in line, because let's not forget there's Fletcher Rooney there as well.
Plus, there's Fletcher coming back from injury. You're spot on. So I just think there that if there's not championship clubs testing the resolve of the Tigers where Windley's concerned for 2027, well, I think that's a missed opportunity, because something tells me there could be an opportunity there. Anyway, let's go to Salford. Salford 64, North Wales 4. Again, we expected Salford to win. That's a good score. Again, we've got to take into account the journey that Salford has been on. 64-4, not to be sniffed at. Great 2 points again, and they're still on the cusp of the playoffs after what happened in 2025. This is a really good story for the people of Salford.
It is, yeah. I think there's a couple of things about this game as well. The first one for me is that there were 11 either positional or personnel changes for Salford from the week before against Barrow. So they're probably seeing this game as an opportunity to either rest a few people or give some people an opportunity to come and play some first team rugby, maybe try a few different things out positional wise. I think Brad Dwyer missed out. I think he got an HIA the week before against Barrow, so he would have been stood down anyway. Yeah. So maybe they've sacrificed a few points, extra points that they could have scored by giving some more players the opportunity to play. The other side to that, North Wales, I think where they are this year and what's realistic for them, I think it's little goals, little wins every week. And they went through the first 10 minutes of the game without conceding a try, without conceding the point, which might not seem a lot, but when you're a team that's been beat by 100 points 2 or 3 times this season, and you've struggled to prevent tries, to get through the first 10 minutes with a clean sheet is a positive. The negative on the back of that is that the next time they got the ball after conceding the first try, they were 30-0 down. So they got through the first 10 or 12 minutes, but then they conceded a try, and then they went back to back. And I think they knocked on the first tackle, trying to catch the ball a couple of times as well. So they never actually played a full set. And Salford, it was 30-0 by the time that North Wales had another full set. So a little bit of a victory, but then that victory was followed by a 30-point hammering in the space of 15 minutes.
And we've got to give Salford credit for that in terms of their execution. You can only go up against what they go up against. Young Toby Hughes, Toby Hughes came in for some flowers for this. Scored a couple of tries, played at standoff. And I have to say, fair play to the lad. He did shine, didn't he?
He did, yeah, and he's been developing throughout the season. I think he's a player that's maybe had a bit of potential previously and maybe not had the opportunity or not fulfilled that potential as yet. But I've watched him a number of times this season, watched Salford a number of times this year, and he's got a great running game, a good right foot step, and he'll take the short sides on. Very, very smart player, and he's a threat with ball and particularly close to the line as well. So I think he's got better and better as the season's progressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, really solid. Played 19 times this season.
Yeah.
Like I say, but that at the weekend, very, very, very good. Had a fine game. You know, I said young, but at 20, virtually nearly 23 now, he's still young by rugby standards, but he's been about for a bit, and he's probably not as young as perhaps a young person, if that makes sense.
But he's young in experience in an important position. Normally, your halfbacks, you know, once you cement your position as an halfback, it's difficult. If you're playing well, it's difficult to get that person out there. So you've got to wait your turn. But he's now in that position where he's secured that spot and made it his own. So he's got the opportunity now to have a run of a number of games, a number of seasons in that position.
Absolutely right. The league table as we go into the next round at the weekend. London, of course, still top now, a 4-point cushion with a game in hand over Newcastle, Oldham, and Barrow, who are all on 28 points. Then it's the Windley Vikings on 24, Doncaster on 22, Sheffield on 20. Then it's the Hurricanes 17, Batley 16, Dewsbury 14, and underneath them on 14 points, but on inferior points difference, is Salford. Hence why we were saying it's been a real positive comeback from Salford in 2027, and it's not done yet, is what I would say. Well, let's get to this weekend's game. Starting, all games are over the weekend. No Friday fixtures this week. Barrow Raiders taking on Newcastle, both on 28 points. Barrow at home. This should be a gregreat game, and of course, at this latter stage of the season, it's big in terms of those top places. It's the one who loses this loses significant ground. I mean, so I know it's only 2 points, but it's significant at this point in the season, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it's a difficult one to call as this, because I don't think Barrow have been hitting the highs that they were at the start of the season, which you can't do all the way through the year. I think they picked up a couple of injuries as well, and they managed to scrape a victory over Salford a couple of weeks back, and by 2 points, and they beat us by 2 points the previous week. So they have got that consistency in winning these close games, but the performances haven't been as dominant as they have been previously. Whereas Newcastle, I know the difference in games that Newcastle are playing. They're playing all the teams that were in League One last season. So I think they're only 2 games outside of the ones from League One teams from last season are Barrow and Batley. They're the only 2 Championship teams that they play. So yeah, they've been winning a lot of games by a lot of points, but stepping up to go and play Barrow at Barrow is a different proposition. It's a very tough game. So I can't really call this one at all. I've maybe verged slightly on the side of Newcastle based on the fact that Barrow haven't been quite as good as they have been all the way through the season.
Yeah, it's a fascinating fixture, that. A real fascinating fixture. Like with most games this season, when it comes to Newcastle, it's all about what personnel is available to on the day, isn't it? Half of the time. But what it will be is a more sterner game, a sterner test of Newcastle, which, based on what you've just said there, tough one indeed. London against Doncaster. Now, look, earlier in the season, Donny were flying, and these games we were thinking, this could be interesting. Donny's form's tapered off a little bit since then. London at home, I think this is going to be a convincing win for the Broncos. Yeah,
it's difficult to look outside of London. Sorry, the way that they've played, the form that they're on, the quality of players that they've got. It's really difficult to look any other direction than London. I think from a Doncaster point of view, I said before, in these sort of games, you want to try and take the opposition as deep as you possibly can and put them into a position where they've not been before that season and see how they respond from that. So for Doncaster, can they get in front? Can they keep it within a score for a certain amount of period of time? And if they can, then that gives you as a team a little bit more impetus to try and push a little bit further and take the game a little bit deeper. But as I say, you can't see any other victory apart from London.
No, you can't. Then we go to Sunday. Those 2 Saturday games both kick off at 6 o'clock, by the way. Sunday fixtures, all 3 o'clock, traditional 3 o'clock fixtures. Starting with Batley taking on Midland Hurricanes. It's been a while since these two met. That was all the way back earlier in the season. Midlands came away with a win at home, 30 points to 12. Over the Bulldogs. They couldn't be tighter in terms of the league table. You've got Batley and Midland side by side in the table. Midland a point better off, 17 to Batley's 16. This could be one of those Dynamber games.
Yeah, definitely. It's Another difficult one to call is this one. I think I'm just going to veer slightly towards Batley on this one. I don't think that Midlands are playing as consistently as they were at the time of the season when they played Batley first time round. I think Batley, although they got beat on Friday against Oldham, I think they've shown a little bit more consistency in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks within their performances. So I would potentially go for Batley this week. I know they've been struggling with injuries and they brought 3 people in on loan of Batley as well to try and bolster the squad a little bit. But I'm going to go on my advantage with Batley.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that. I think you might be right. I'm going to go with you on that one. I think I'm going to go Batley Bulldogs. Then it's the Keighley Cougars against Dewsbury Rams. Good news for Keighley. The owners have decided to stay at Keighley, I think I read this week, due to the outpouring of support from the fans. And when I say the fans, the fans of the club. I mean, I think everybody felt that they were doing a good job, that they were handling the club in the right and appropriate way. Yes, there was a few keyboard warriors that were, quite rightly, you've got to look at that. You've got to consider, is it your mental health, your well-being? If you're going to bed at night with those things playing on your mind, it's not a healthy position to be in. But they've decided they're going to stick around, and that's got to be a real positive for Keighley. And do you think that could give them a little bit of a lift that gets them over the line against Dewsbury, or do you think Dewsbury take this one?
I think Dewsbury take this one. I think it is a positive for Keighley as a club that they've got that stability back there now, because I'm really worried about the future of the club if Ryan and Cowie left, because there's nobody else that's going to come in and put the money in that needs to be put into a rugby league club to keep it alive, unless you've got some ulterior motives where, I know during my time there was somebody else that came in with ulterior motives to try and get the ground and I guess use it for building on, but that never materialised. So you've got to have the right people that are running rugby league clubs, and obviously Ryan and Cowie have got the club at heart with the history within the O'Neill family there. But I don't think that Keighley have got enough quality. I don't think they've got enough strength in depth to beat Dewsbury. I think the way that Dewsbury performed this season, I think the way that they've fought, the way that they've scrapped for each other, the togetherness that they've shown even in games that they've been beaten, I think that Dewsbury will have a little bit too much fight, a little bit too much quality for Keighley.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Perhaps the biggest enjoyment Keighley get this week is that security that we've spoken about, and we're delighted that decision has been made, and the very best of luck for them going forward. Windley's back on the horse, of course, at the weekend, and then now they've got North Wales Crusaders, so another opportunity for Widnes to kick on and move forward. We don't see anything other than a Widnes win here.
No, I think it'll be a big win as well. I think once you get a team like Widnes wants to click, it's they've got a lot of attacking potential, a lot of players that love open games like this, So I think we could see a bit of a point-a-thon on this one, to be fair. Yeah,
no, I have to agree on that. I have to agree. It's a win for me. And then Oldham on this, like I say, incredible run of form. They come up this weekend against Halifax. Halifax visits Oldham. It's hard to bet against Oldham at the moment based on that run, and league positions don't lie at the end of the day. I think Oldham carry on and get that 14th.
Yeah, I would agree. Halifax are always a strange side, though. They're always, you don't know what you're going to get with Halifax, particularly at this moment in time with the players that they've got, and they might get a few more players in on loan this week. I know there's 1 or 2 Super League clubs that are looking to try and get a few players out, and if you're at Halifax and you're in the situation where you've not got too many players, you want to get as many players as you possibly can to try and bolster your squad and strengthen your squad for the running of the season. They might be a club that looks to try and take a few more people in there to boost the squad that they've got. So if they do that might change the dynamics and the complexity of the game a little bit. But with the form that Oldham are on, as you say, it's difficult to look any other way.
Yeah, I'd agree. Let's go to Whitehaven next. Whitehaven taking on Swinton. This is going to be a tight one as well. I think Swinton, like I say, great effort, brilliant effort last week. Whitehaven, I say comfortably above them, but we've got to take into account how Swinton started the season. Swinton are a different beast now to what they were at the start of the season. This could go either way. It could go either way. I'm going to back Swinton for this. I think Swinton they're really impressing me at the moment. So I'm going to stick my neck out and go Swinton. Which way are you going?
I'm going with you. I think that Swinton, the way that they've played over the last couple of months, the consistency that they've shown in the games, even the games that they've lost, I think they've shown a different side to themselves. And I think going to Whitehaven this week, I think Whitehaven may be struggling for bodies a little bit as well. They've picked up a few injuries and they've got suspension as well. So I think they're struggling for bodies, and I think the bodies that they have got, there might be a bit like a bad jigsaw where you're trying to force a piece in that doesn't necessarily fit there. So, I think the way that Swinton are playing, the confidence that they've got, I think they could go up there and do a job this week.
And then we come to you. Obviously left you till last. Of course, you're going up against Salford at Salford, who have hit some form. Now when you two met earlier in the season in Sheffield, it was a tri-fest, 38-26. Do you see as many tries? You'll be hoping not against, I know that. But do you see this as being an open game again, or do you see it going a different way? You're going to back your own team, but go on. I mean, where's the danger for you as a Sheffield side, and give us an update on personnel going into it.
Yeah, personnel going into it, we're in a decent spot, to be honest. We didn't lose anybody from the previous game. I don't think Lewis Peachy will be back. He pulled out on the captain's run before the Dewsbury game with a calf injury. He's still struggling with that. Connor Fitzsimmons will be back in, so we're starting to get a couple of bodies back in now. So we're in no worse position we were before the Dewsbury game. So that's always nice. And we've actually added, as I said, Connor Fitzsimmons back into the squad this week. He's back into full training, so we'll be in consideration. So we're not in too bad a spot as long as nobody goes down injured tomorrow and Friday in training. I think the difficulty for us is that Salford are playing with a lot of confidence. They're playing with a lot of shape. I think that Dave Hewitt's gone in there and he's got hold of them, and he's brought an enjoyment back to Salford. You can see it in the way that they play. They're very, very aggressive in defence. They like to get off the line, particularly in their yardage D, and put you under some pressure. They seem to be fighting for each other together as a team. They like to play some shapes as well, so they'll throw the ball about, and they seem very, very connected with what they're doing. Everybody knows their role. Everybody knows that wherever they end up on a position on the field, that's the shape they're going to drop into. They like taking short sides as well. So there's threats open, there's threats short, there's threats across the field. So defensively, we've not been great in some of the games this year. So we know that if we're off it this week defensively, that Salford have got the tools to damage us. But likewise for us, since we've brought Greg Eden, and it's opened up our attacking dynamic a little bit more. We've scored nearly 100 points in the last 2 games that we've played with Greg starting at fullback. So we've got our own threats as well, and we're confident in us being able to score points. It's just, I think whoever defends better this week is going to win the game. Yeah,
Greg Eden. What do you get with Greg Eden? You get tries. That's what you get with our Gregory, an absolute superstar in terms of his try scoring exploits. I mean, look, in some respects where Salford are concerned, just from I think as a club, there's almost no pressure now at Salford this year, because even on the terraces, because they've already succeeded as a club. They've come back from the ashes. They've got themselves 14 points. They're the highest placed outside of the playoff positions. I mean, it's a great season for their first season back. From what could have happened. That's what makes them dangerous for me now, is the fact that because complacency is, of course, the biggest concern, because when we say there's no pressure, complacency can come in, providing that doesn't happen. And as you say, the message is, look, lads, just go and play your rugby league, go and enjoy it. There's no pressure. Go and go and be expansive. Go and do what you want. That's what makes them dangerous, because, like I say, they've already won, haven't they, this season, Salford?
100%. Yeah, I think that's what makes a dangerous animal, is that no pressure. There's absolutely no pressure on that whatsoever. They've probably overachieved at the start of the season. If they could have said, look, you'll get 12, 14 points on the board this season, they'd probably snap chance off about that points total from where they were at the start of the season. So they'll, as I said, that's what makes them a dangerous animal. And I guess a little bit like New South Wales today, everybody expected them to get beat in the backyard of Queensland. No pressure on them whatsoever. Queensland were probably the favourites. They didn't really cope with that to a great, I guess, a great deal. But for us, it's us going and making sure we concentrate on ourselves. We can't control to a certain degree what Salford do and how they're feeling about each other, because they're playing with a lot of confidence, and we need to make sure that we do the same.
I mean, when you go in, we spoke earlier in the season, didn't we, about the trials and tribulations of early fixtures over there in Cumbria. What you do know about Sunday is you go into a very good facility with a very good pitch, and as a coach, that must make you, and a team, what you're going to get in terms of the surface. You go into a proper facility. That's got to be a good thing for a coach going into these games.
Yeah, definitely, and that'll suit us as a team as well with the players that we've got. We've tried to promote a little bit of attacking rugby this year. We've sometimes not had the personnel on the field to do that, but as I said, the last couple of games that we've played, scored nearly 100 points, and we're starting to show a little bit of our DNA now about what we want to be as a team. So that field will suit us, but it also suits Salford as well. It's their own ground. They like to play, so they'll be looking forward to playing on that against us as well. I'm sure they've watched some of our defensive efforts this season and thought there's an opportunity to exploit them there as well. So defensively, we need to be a little bit tougher, a little bit tighter than what we have been, but then just be as good with the ball as we've been these last 2 games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it could be a belter, this. It could be about. I know you're not going to take it anything, you won't take it for granted, no way. The way Salford are playing, it should be a very entertaining game indeed this coming Sunday at 3:00 at Salford. So let's just confirm those fixtures one last time before we bring tonight's show to an end. Saturday at 6 p.m. Barrow, Newcastle, should be a cracker. London taking on Doncaster. And then Sunday, some really good fixtures in here. Batley against Midland. That should be a very good game indeed. Keighley taking on Dewsbury. North Wales up against Windley Vikings. Oldham up against Halifax. Salford, Sheffield. I think that could be a belter and all. And Whitehaven taking on Swinton. All of the Sunday games, 3 p.m. As always, mate, I can be a little bit biased because you do the show with me. So best of luck the weekend. I hope it goes well. It was great having your company as well at Magic Weekend. And we get to do that all again at the grand final. But on behalf of myself and on behalf of Craig, go and enjoy your Championship Rugby League. There's a couple of games in there this weekend that should go very, very close and down to the wire. We'll be back to unwrap it all next Wednesday, same time, same place. Bye for now.